And we're live with a special edition of the Gridiron Address. We're not doing our usual recap or preview because we only got the Pro Bowl games this weekend. And I'm going to be honest, I don't know if I really want to preview a dodgeball game. That doesn't really interest me. So we're doing mock draft content. Like I've said before, it's been coming, and this is one of my favorite times of the football season. Super exciting. Obviously, interesting draft. A lot of QB needy teams, but this is not a strong quarterback class. It's not top heavy, but you look in like the third, fourth round, there's a lot of solid players there that, we could see a run on quarterbacks in the third or fourth round. But first round might only see two quarterbacks go, with that being Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. But interesting draft class for sure. A lot of talent, although it's not at the quarterback position. Chris, we'll start it off with you. Titans got the first overall pick. Who do you have them taking? Do they go a best player available, or do they address their quarterback need after the really atrocious and meme-riddled season that Will Levis had?
Yeah, I mean, some of those are really funny. Like my favorite meme relating to Will Levis is like where he's on his side and it's like Supermaning trying to throw, and it's like, my guy, neither of your feet are on the ground. You're not Patrick Mahomes. Why are you trying to throw the football? I saw this guy play personally actually in Pittsburgh, and he did not impress me, but also the comparison was Kenny Pickett, so not that great of a comparison. Anyway, I do think that they need to address the quarterback problem. I think that there is a lot that Tennessee needs to go for, but I think they're going to go Cam Ward. I really do. I think they're going to go Cam Ward because he's the most experienced quarterback out of that top three or so. I think that he's a more better guy to build a franchise around and slowly build it up from the ground, because Tennessee, man, they really don't have a lot to show. I mean, there's a reason they have the first overall pick, so I'm going Cam Ward.
Jason, do you see Tennessee going different? Do they go Travis Hunter, or do they take a quarterback and try to start building up their team?
That's a good question, man. And the biggest question I have is, how did Will Levis get a mayonnaise commercial? That's what I want to know. I think that's the biggest question in all of our minds. If he's that bad, how did he get a national commercial? But anyway, this is tough. They desperately need a quarterback. I don't think Levis is their quarterback. I can see them taking Cam Ward, but I can also see them trading that first pick and moving down in the draft. And that's kind of what I have them doing, because there is so much talent in that quarterback class that's more raw. Like, not one of these guys to me is a lock first pick. Ward is good. Sanders is good. You got a lot of other guys in there. Melrose, Dart, Gabriel. But they need some domination, and domination is on defense right now. And I think they take Abdul Carter. I think they kind of trade back a little bit. I don't think they go back too far, but I think they want to take Carter, or they can just take him with the first pick. It kind of just depends on if somebody offers them, a ton of picks just to get that first pick, which may happen. There's a lot of weird things going on in this draft. But I think they go Carter. I think they go defense. He's bubbling up to kind of be almost one of the best players in this draft. You have Hunter up there, but from what I'm seeing, guys are really rating Carter super, super high. And you can get a solid quarterback in the second round in this draft right now. So I think they go Carter first pick.
I could definitely see that happening. Abdul Carter, obviously phenomenal athlete, and I'm still banking on him dropping to Carolina. I do have him dropping a little bit. We'll see how far here in a few minutes, but he's not going to make it to Carolina. Spoiler alert, not really a spoiler because the guy is rocketing up boards. But I got the Titans going Cam Ward as well. I don't think that they can go through another year of Will Levis, and I don't think that a veteran quarterback that's going to be on the market like a Sam Darnold or Russell Wilson is going to want to go to a team like Tennessee. I would like to see Wilson and Darnold both return to their teams from last season. Tennessee's just got to solve that quarterback problem. I think Ward is the best of the bunch. He's got a good arm. He's pretty mobile as well, and I think he could do all right. They obviously need to get some pieces around him, get the guy some weapons in the second and third round, and make sure he's got protection. You got to protect your young quarterbacks. We saw it with Bryce Young in his rookie year. We saw it with Caleb Williams. and we saw it with CJ Stroud in year 2. They will struggle if you do not protect them. That's got to be priority one after quarterback. Build up an offensive line, get them some weapons. Moving on to the second overall pick, the Cleveland Browns. Their quarterback situation is a mess. They threw a disgusting amount of money at a disgusting human being in Deshaun Watson, and they're just left in a terrible situation. It's hard to justify moving on from that kind of a contract this early, but you feel like they need to because he is just not good enough at all. They need to move on from him, but do they go quarterback? I personally don't. I think they're going arguably best player on the board, Travis Hunter, two-way star. He's going to bring some energy and excitement to that Cleveland team that they really need. And like we said earlier, there's some solid quarterback prospects in those middle rounds. I could see Cleveland going for a Curtis Rourke in the 4th round potentially. But Chris, who do you have Cleveland taking?
This is a hard one. This is one I thought about a lot here. Because I think it's between Sanders and Travis Hunter. But overall, Travis Hunter would address team needs, but their team needs are kind of everywhere outside of, I'll say outside of running back, a healthy Nick Chubb. But a lot of players on defense, I don't think they'll go defense. And that's kind of why I'm leaning towards Shedeur Sanders. I think they're going to try their hand at drafting Shedeur Sanders. If he pulls an Eli Manning, who knows? That would be so unprecedented. Number 2 overall pick, pulling an Eli Manning, but I'm giving Shedeur Sanders. Who knows if Dion will let him play that?
That is, I don't know if he would go to Cleveland, honestly. I could see him pulling an Eli Manning.
But I could see them drafting him regardless because they're the Browns.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Even with those risks.
Jason, do you think Cleveland goes quarterback?
Here we go again. This is another one with huge question marks. Cleveland needs a lot of help. I can see them trading back again with somebody, a Raiders, a Jets that need to jump in there and want to get that number 2 quarterback. So I could see kind of Cleveland moving back. I think they go Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter. I put Carter first, so I'm going to put Hunter second. I think if Tennessee takes Cam Ward, then I think they take Abdul Carter. The Browns, they're known for their defense, and Myles Garrett has had a phenomenal year. And if you put him with another stud defensive player like a Carter, you put Hunter in the back there, watch out for that defense because Cleveland needs so much. They would be remiss to not trade away that pick and get a ton of draft capital. Move back, take the Jets or Raiders 6th or 7th pick, so you still get a 1st-round pick. Get a bunch more 3rd or 4th-round picks in this year's draft, maybe something for next year's draft, and really load up. But if you hold my feet to the fire, I think they take Hunter. Sanders is not going to Cleveland. Dion they're going to pull something even bigger than an Eli Manning. He's going to come out and say, look, my kid's not going to play there. So I do not see Cleveland picking Shedeur Sanders. He's not going to go there. He doesn't even want to be mentioned in the same breath right now with that franchise because right now that franchise is toxic, which is a shame because that fan base deserves so much better. So I'm going to go Hunter. I think they go defense. If they don't trade the pick, they are a defensive team. They're always kind of known for that blue-collar Midwest defensive team. So I think they go that way. They need so much more than that. It's like one of those things. I don't know. Hopefully they make the right decision because lately the Cleveland Browns have not been making any very good decisions here.
They've definitely struggled. For the sake of my sanity, I did not include any trades because I already spent a frustrating amount of time with this one mock draft.
It's so hard.
2.0 that we'll probably be doing in a couple weeks post Super Bowl, of course. That'll probably have some trades, but I didn't want to have to think that much. But Jason, your Giants are on the clock at number 3. Obviously, the Daniel Jones experiment failed miserably. They let Barkley walk, and he's killing it in Philly now in a Super Bowl. Really rough situation for the Giants. What do you have your team doing at number 3?
Oh, hopefully making the right decision. I'd really like to see a Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. I again, you talk about the best physical players in the draft. ready for the NFL. I think those two guys out of everybody are probably the best NFL ready. Ward, Sanders, you're going to need to work with them. They need to start working with quarterbacks a lot better in the NFL instead of throwing these guys out here. I hope they don't catch Daniels fever and think that Jaden Daniels is going to come out of this draft, or CJ Stroud the year before coming out. Those are one-hit wonder guys. I hope they pick Hunter, but I could see them choosing Sanders. There's a lot going on right now. The Eli Manning comparisons with not wanting to play here, going to New York, I can see him going there because the Giants are the little more stable New York organization compared to the Jets. So if he had to take his personality, a little bit, but we didn't choose Aaron Rodgers. So, I mean, Daniel Jones was bad enough, but we at least gave him a shot. He wasn't 50 years old. But I just want us to pick the best available. If Sanders goes, if Ward goes, get Ward, or get Carter, one of those guys, but I want to see Sanders. I think with him and Neighbors together, you talking about an electric offense. If they go out and do a trade, I've heard DK Metcalf in there. I've heard some other possible wide receiver trades for the Giants to pick up another solid wide receiver. I even heard D-Hop, Hopkins, after he's done in Kansas City, coming over to the Giants and signing a little contract and playing, because you put somebody with Neighbors and then you get an electric quarterback, we're going to have a phenomenal offense because our defense wasn't that bad. But so give me Sanders at 3. We need that change quarterback right now. We need some positivity. And you bring the Sanders aura to New York. Watch out now.
For sure, they need a quarterback. I got them going Shedeur Sanders at 3 as well. I think he is a good passer, and he has upside in terms of mobility. Problem with him is he holds onto the ball a little too long sometimes. So same situation with Tennessee. The Giants have to build up that offensive line and get the guys some more weapons. Neighbors is great, and I think Theo Johnson is a talented tight end as well. Hopefully he can bounce back from his injury. He's going to be a really solid receiving threat if he can pan out. They also need to get another running back to pair with Tyron Tracy Jr. Great receiver, but he's a little on the small side. You need a heavy-hitting running back who can run it up the gut.
The answer. Yeah,
for sure. And solid running back class, not top-heavy. You obviously got Ashton Genty, but there is definitely a lot of talent that's going to be there in those middle rounds. Chris, who do you have the Giants taking at number 3?
So I know we're not doing trades, and when we actually do one with trades, I will say that they actually trade back simply because of the awkward situation that they're in, because both, at least in my mock, both good quarterbacks are really good quarterbacks are off the board already. And Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter are a team need, but is that a important team need, especially when it comes to Travis Hunter, because who knows what he's going to be playing in the NFL. He was a really good running back. He was a pretty darn good cornerback too. Is he going to be a good NFL cornerback? I think if the Giants are smart, they actually pass on Hunter. So in an ideal world, I say that they trade back, but I'm actually going to go do something a little bit weird here. And I'm going to say that they're going to go stoop down a little bit and probably the third best quarterback. It wouldn't surprise me if they do this and call me crazy. Dylan Gabriel.
Oh, wow.
I can see that.
I could see them doing that because he's probably the second most NFL ready out of that quarterback class. So I think 3 straight quarterbacks go, even though maybe necessarily all 3 of them shouldn't be top 3. But
that is it. This isn't out of pocket. I'd almost say that's out of pocket. I hope they don't.
No,
Jason, for your sake, at number 3, there's just
take Carter or Hunter.
Much,
do not. No,
and there's too much talent for them.
It wouldn't surprise me though, because it's the team need. You agree that he's the third best quarterback in the class.
Yeah, but
right?
you could get him in the second round. You don't have to waste a first round pick.
Who knows?
You can get.
I don't know. I mean, hey, Pittsburgh supposedly like Jalen Milroe, so who knows?
Not.
Maybe they go for a ridiculous pick like that. But moving on to number 4, the Patriots. They got who we think could be their franchise guy in Drake May. Solid rookie season with really not a lot to work with. I liked what I saw from him for the most part. I think they're going to go best offensive lineman in the class. They're getting Will Campbell, hoping they're taking a page out of, what you saw from the Bears. They struggled with their offensive line, and their young quarterback struggled. We've seen that so much. Hopefully these teams will learn that they really, really need to address offensive line for their young quarterbacks. Will Campbell, phenomenal left tackle, did great against some insane competition in the SEC. Excelled really. They get a potential franchise left tackle to pair with Drake May, keep his blind side protected. Jason, what do you think the Pats are going to do it for?
I think they go defense too. I think this is going to be a pretty heavy defensive draft overall. I think they go Mason Graham defense from Michigan there. They need to be able to get off the field on third down. That was a huge crutch on them this year. Look, I think you can find some offensive line talent in the second and third rounds and some later rounds. I wouldn't be surprised if they went offensive tackle with Campbell. I wouldn't be surprised if they even went to another wide receiver with I can't even say his name. Tahara McMillan. I can't even say his name there. The dude from Arizona there, T. McMillan. I'm going to just call him that here. I don't even know how to say his name. I don't want to butcher it. I apologize about that. But I can see them going for offensive weapon, but they need defense. That team needs to be able to get off the field on third down. And I think you've got to take, the best available. And when you start getting through that, now, if one of those things where Carter falls or Hunter falls, I mean, those are no brainers, but I think they go defense. Offensive line, I think they're going to address that because they definitely need to address that for May. But this is going to be a defensive heavy draft here.
Without a doubt, an insane amount of talent on defense in this class. Chris, what do you have the Pats doing it for?
I'm going to roll with you. I'm going to go Will Campbell. They have a good pocket passer in Drake May. I think it's just overall a good idea to go with an offensive tackle. I mean, that's really what they need to address. They already have a great player on defense, and Christian Gonzalez is one of the most underrated players, one of the most underrated defensive players in the NFL, if you ask me. So, yeah, give me Will Campbell. I think it's a team need, and he's probably the best available offensive lineman.
For sure. Love that pick, Chris, and Mason Graham as well. Phenomenal player. But now we got the Jags at 5. They had the worst pass defense in the entire league. So I have them going with Will Johnson, great corner, maybe a better corner than Travis Hunter. Not sure. He doesn't have that two-way ability, but he is a former receiver. The guy has good hands. He can generate turnovers. I could see Liam Cohen wanting to get a weapon for Trevor Lawrence to work with, possibly a McMillan out of Arizona. And I saw one mock that had Tyler Warren out of Penn State going at 5, which great player, love Warren, but I think corner is too big of a need for the Jags to pass on a player like Will Johnson. Jason, what do you have them doing at 5?
Oof, that's a good question. That's if the Bucks don't try to block them with all their little drama, which I think is kind of funny there. Go Jags for getting into the news here with their coach selection. This was a tough one too because they need so much. Their running back room was very weak. They got wide receiver. You got your guy there as far as quarterback. So, I mean, you're set there. I'm going to go either with this. A lot of it, again, depends on how everybody falls, but I'm going to go Tyler Warren, tight end. I think they need another offensive weapon. This is a guy that can block. This is a guy who can get down the field, catch the football. They do definitely need some offensive line help. So it would not surprise me if Campbell falls back to the Jags, that they go pick that offensive line because Trevor Lawrence had a horrific year. He was on his back most of the time, so they definitely need to address that. But they need some offensive weapons. Their offense looked horrible. So give me Tyler Warren, tight end, unless Campbell falls. But I think they go tight end. They need some offensive firepower and somebody that can block for either Trevor or the run game.
Chris, Jags need some help just about everywhere but quarterback. What do you think they're going to do at 5?
So, yeah, I mean, I definitely agree with Jason's point. They should be going with offensive pieces. I was close between Kelvin Banks and Mason Graham. I still have Mason Graham on my board, and I think he's probably one of the better defensive linemen available, and that's a big team need for them. I mean, they kind of need everything outside of quarterback. And, I think it's one of those situations that as long as the player pans out, you can't really lose, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Like I said earlier, love Mason Graham. I'm hoping him or Carter drops. I want one of those two in Carolina because, dear Lord, that defense needs help. We're going to get to the Panthers here pretty shortly because they had an atrocious year. But next up at 6, we got the Raiders. Obviously hired veteran head coach Pete Carroll to hopefully bring a culture to that team that is in desperate need of one. I was torn. If we were doing trades, I could almost see them trading up with Cleveland and taking a Shedeur Sanders at 2nd. But yeah. I got them staying at 6. I got them getting receiver help. Going McMillan from Arizona, insane receiver, 6'5", insane. He's got good speed. Obviously, when you got a player that big, they're not going to be, a Tyreek Hill kind of fast or anything like that. But he's got good enough speed, and that size, the red zone potential there is just too much to pass on. They need offensive help. I could also see them going Ashton Genty. Yes, we're seeing maybe a running back resurgence, but I still think that the position has been fairly devalued lately with the more running back by committee approach that we're seeing. Chris, who do you have the Raiders taking in the first round?
Well, I'm going to go with a guy that kind of addresses two team needs because he's a two-way player. He's still on my board. Give me Travis Hunter. I mean, they need a running back and they need a cornerback. They need secondary. Secondary has historically always been a huge issue for the Raiders, so they can address that if they decide to work with him. Again, we don't know how well of an NFL cornerback he's going to be, but worst comes to worst, you make him a running back. Give me Travis Hunter going to Raiders.
Quick correction there. Travis Hunter is a wide receiver and cornerback.
Sorry, wide receiver, my bad. But yeah, still, it's also a team need as Absolutely. We got there. But thank you.
Without a doubt, if Hunter falls, that would be a no-brainer pick for the Raiders. I just don't know if I see a world where he drops out of the top 5. Somebody's going to move up and get a guy like that. Jason, who do you have Vegas taking here?
Here we go again. A team that has a ton of needs right now. You also have Tom Brady in the background doing his little puppet master thing, pulling the strings. Pete Carroll coming in, trying to create a little bit of a different culture there, which I think is going to be a shock to them because he's a completely different style of coach, I think, than anybody they've had in there in a long time. So it'll be interesting to see which way they head. Of course, they need a quarterback. Do they get scared and jump up and take a Milroe and take a Gabriel? I can't spit it out right now. Or maybe even Ewers. Do they trade up, take Sanders? I think they go Ashton Genty. I think they go running back. They need some help there. The running back is going to see a resurgence. You saw what Derrick Henry did. You saw what Saquon Barkley did. You saw the two-headed monster in Detroit. That is coming back, and don't be surprised to see an emphasis on a dual running back, but you at least need one good one. You can have a dual running back system, but if you got two junky running backs, then it doesn't work. So I can see them going Genty, fits their need. They could pick up another one of these great quarterbacks in the second round. You talk about a Milroe or a Dart. One of those guys, I think they can pick them up in the second round. I'm even a huge fan of Kyle McCord. Go Syracuse. Broke the ACC yards record this year. So there is a lot of quarterback talent out there that can fall back in those later rounds. Get the best available. They need some pop on offense. Pete Carroll had the Beastmaster himself, with Marshawn Lynch. So why not put another big beast in the background with Ashton Genty?
For sure. I was back and forth with Genty or McMillan at 6, but I got them going McMillan just purely because of how the running back position is valued in the league right now. Yes, I think Genty will be great. I do have him dropping a little bit. Top 15 pick for sure. We're going to see how far I have him fallen, but At 7, we got the Jets, brought in Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn. It felt like I don't know. It was weird how they handled their head coaching situation. Yes, Saleh didn't work out with the Jets, but I don't think he was the problem there. Obviously, back with the 49ers. I love that move for them, but I had Abdul Carter dropping a little bit, and Aaron Glenn is not going to hesitate to take the best defensive player available there in Abdul Carter. Obviously, their defense was solid. That's arguably not their top need, but when a player like Carter falls to you, you take him without a second thought. That card's going to be handed in like 10 seconds if he falls to them. Chris, who do you have the Jets taking in the first?
I also got him going Abdul Carter. I mean, I think there's no way that you hire a DC and your edge rusher is probably your first or second most team need. Jets need a lot, obviously. They need to eventually figure out a quarterback. I think they can maybe address that through free agency, let that carry over for a year. I think Aaron Rodgers is the problem personally. I was a big Robert Saleh guy, and I still am. I agree that I love that 49ers pickup, but I agree with you as well that if Abdul Carter is there for those Jets, he is going to be getting picked by them.
Jason, what do you think they're going to do? Obviously, need some help on offense. Defense is solid. Another kind of interesting pick here. What are they going to do?
Well, another interesting pick, another franchise that couldn't hit a dartboard if they were standing 2 inches in front of it. I think they go Will Campbell, offensive tackle. They will need a quarterback, but that offensive line has been atrocious. They got almost 3 really, really good running backs in that stable right now. So running back, they don't have to worry about. I think they can work on wide receiver and get some talent, maybe through free agency. I can see them drafting a quarterback in the second round. They may get, again, you got these teams may get scared. They may jump up and go, okay, we'll take Milroe. We'll take somebody. We need a quarterback. We're going to get freaked out. But they need to get that offensive line right because they're 2 good running backs had atrocious years because they could not get past that offensive line. So I got them taking Will Campbell, offensive tackle, LSU. Jets, do something smart, please. Build a team. Don't just throw stuff at the wall and hope it sticks and trying to put these weird pieces together and think they're going to play well together. So start on that offensive line. Build your offensive line and put somebody behind that offensive line that's going to succeed. Because if you don't have an offensive line and you draft a quarterback and that offensive line is still as bad as it is, whoever you put back there is not going to succeed. So offensive tackle Will Campbell, LSU, let's go.
And now we got my Carolina Panthers at 8. I don't have Carter on the board for him, but I do still have Mason Graham, defensive tackle out of Michigan. Panthers had the worst run defense in the league, and that is exactly where Mason Graham excels. Phenomenal against the run, and he is a solid pass rusher. He obviously played with a lot of talented players on that Michigan defensive line, so you don't really see his pass rushing ability reflected statistically, but he is still a solid pass rusher, but they obviously need to address the run. I could also see them potentially going Malachi Starks. Secondary was terrible as well, but address the run. Honestly, take all defense first 4 rounds. I would not hate that in the slightest. Chris, who do you have the Panthers taking at 8?
Yeah, I mean, I also have Abdul Carter off my board. I think it's pretty close. Will Johnson still on my board. I think that wouldn't be a bad idea, trying to go with the secondary. Again, that's something that Carolina has struggled with. Michael Williams, too, as well, would be a good pick. Edge rusher, big positional address. But I'm gonna go Will Johnson here. I was about 50-50 there. He's still on my board. Give me a cornerback that helps out with that secondary. There's a lot of good quarterbacks in the NFC South, and I think that a good corner would just help out against guys like Michael Penix Jr. and Baker Mayfield.
For sure. I honestly, you take any defensive player that I honestly won't complain. Graham or Carter are obviously my top choices, but that defense needs help everywhere. They need linebacker depth. Shaq Thompson getting up there in age, coming off an injury. We don't know how he's going to look. Hopefully, you can have a Thomas Davis type of resurgence. Obviously, another Panthers linebacker who dealt with 3 ACL tears in his career and still came back and was a great player. Hopefully, we see that from Shaq Thompson. Jason, Who do you have? My favorite team taking at 8.
Well, listen, your favorite team has a lot of talent on it. I think it needs a few pieces. They really showed in the second half of the season that they have hope. There's a lot of teams out there that don't have hope, and the Panthers do. I think they go McMillan, wide receiver, Arizona. They need a big bopper. Look, Leggett is a good wide receiver, but I don't see him as the deep down the field guy. To me, he's a little more of the short, slants and that kind of thing. Keep him on the inside. I still love Mr. Thielen. I think he is phenomenal. I think he's going to be there. He's got a few more years. I know he's getting a little older, but I still think he is a value in production. But McMillan, wide receiver, you put 6'5" on the outside there with Young, gets the ball down the field. Because you talked about it. This is a deep defensive and deep offensive line draft. I think the Panthers are going to be able to get defense and offensive line throughout this draft. But get yourself a wide receiver talent that is going to be a stud, that if Young closes his eyes and throws the football down the field, he's going to be able to catch it. So you guys need to put some points on the board, and I think McMillan can do that for you.
I would not hate that pick, honestly. Bryce Young needs weapons. I like what he's got, though. I think Thielen's got a couple more solid years in him. I think Leggett is he's gonna get it right. He obviously struggled with some drops his rookie year. The guy's got some good speed, Jason, like you said. Short yardage, get the guy the ball in his hands and just let him run. He can make guys miss. 4.39 speed at the combine last year. Some solid weapons to build around. But we got my least favorite team in all of sports. The New Orleans Saints are picking at 9.
It's not
Jason,
Duke basketball.
what do you think we're going to go with? Duke basketball is second, but the Saints are always going to be number 1 least favorite for me. But
this is going to be an interesting pick. The Saints, Carr is a question now because he wants some money. The Saints don't want to pay him. He's been injured. So it wouldn't shock me to see the Saints go quarterback at this number 9. I got them going. Mikael Williams, defense edge. That Saints defense was absolutely atrocious this year. The Saints were always known as kind of a little more of a defensive team. They've had some great offenses with Drew Brees and everything, but their defense always showed up and always got the team off the field. So I think they go defense. I think they go Williams edge. They need help on that D right now, but they have a lot of offensive questions. So right now, Saints is another one of those teams. Who knows what they're going to do because they need so much to address.
Jason, I agree with you there. I think they're going Mikael Williams out of Georgia. Phenomenal athlete, amazing against the run. I hope they don't take him because I do not want to have the Panthers go against that guy twice a year. Panthers obviously relied pretty heavily on the run with Chuba Hubbard, had a great year. Hopefully the Saints neglect defensive line and take an offensive player, please. New Orleans. I know I was just talking crap earlier, but don't take Mikael Williams. I think they're going to take him, though. Phenomenal player, amazing athlete. Chris, what are the Saints doing at number 9?
They need secondary. I mean, it's Will Harris and Honey Badger that they got in the secondary right now. Give me Malachi Starks. I think they need that. Again, anything on defense, you can't really fail as long as the player works out. So give me another Georgia guy. I don't think this is that bad of one. Just another Georgia defensive player. Can't really fail. Malachi Starks.
Now we got the Bears at 10. Caleb Williams, the most sacked player in the entire league his rookie year. Atrocious offensive line. You got to fix that ASAP. I have them going Kelvin Banks out of Texas. Amazing tackle, instant impact when he landed at Texas, but you can't not skip on an offensive lineman in the first round. Maybe even trade up for a Will Campbell, get the best tackle on the board. I would not hate that for Chicago, but Jason, what do you see them doing here?
Same. I mean, come on, Banks, Kevin Burks Jr., offensive tackle. They need help on that offensive line. You cannot have Caleb Williams again on his back the whole time. They have offensive talent. They have defensive talent. They need to block and help, and that's the rebuild and get that best available. That's a no-brainer right there. Offensive tackle. If they go anything other than offensive tackle, I would be the Bears. Then are going to do Bears things, and then they're just going to be another a trash year. But their first 4 picks need to be offensive tackles, so they get the right ones.
For sure, I could even see him going guard. I think there's some really good offensive line talent in this draft. But Chris, what do you think Chicago's going to do right here?
Hey, man, I'll go the trifecta. Banks is exactly what they need. That's the reason they lost so many games, that and bad clock management coaching decisions. Yeah, give me Banks. I think that they need to just build around Caleb Williams, build around that solid run game, build around that solid receiving game. DJ Moore had a really sneaky good year. So, yeah, give me Banks. I think it's a great idea to go offensive lineman.
Clean sweep there with Kelvin Banks Jr. Real quick before we move on to the 49ers pick, Sean Lucas watching. Appreciate you, Sean. And the real Benjamin, I'm not going to say that, but we're going to be getting to that team later. They had a phenomenal year. So obviously they're picking 29th. This is going to be a marathon stream, y'all. If anybody can stick around till the end, I appreciate you. We're at 36 minutes right now, and we're just wrapping up the top 10. Hopefully my panel is going to stick around for the whole time. But this is fun. The 49ers, disappointing year after making the Super Bowl, just horrendous collapse. Trent Williams dealing with injuries, getting up there in age. I think they take his heir apparent at left tackle. I think they go Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. Yes, he's coming off of an injury, but he was an absolutely dominant force for Ohio State up until he got injured. I think you get a guy like that, put him behind one of the best offensive linemen of our generation in Trent Williams, the guy's going to be set. I think that is really important for him. Could see him going D-line as well, but I feel like Simmons is one of the better linemen available, period, defensive, offensive. Jason, what do you think they're going to do at 11?
49ers, kudos to them for really hanging around. They had so many huge injuries this year. Don't be surprised if the 49ers, as Ashton Jeanty is still there, that they take a running back. Because right now you have so many questions on running back. All their guys have gotten hurt. So that would not surprise me if they shocked the world and took Jeanty, if he's there at number 11, to pair him with CMC, because you don't know what CMC you're going to get. Give me James Pierce Jr., Tennessee edge defense. They need some defensive help there. 49ers, one of those teams that are always known for their rocking defense. They do need some help on the help on the offensive line. They need to figure out the wide receiver room too, because I don't know. You've had some injuries there. I don't know if you start trading some of those pieces away with Debo and Ayuk. Maybe you can get some value for those guys, because they both had really, really off years, and you're spending a lot of money on those guys. So I think they go defense, huge defensive draft. 49ers, known for their defense. So Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee.
Chris, what do you have the 49ers doing at 11? Do they bolster that defense to try and get it back up to what we've seen before? Or do they address offensive needs, whether it be the line or wide receiver core?
I got him going Josh Simmons as well, trying to build around Brock Purdy, hoping Christian McCaffrey can stay healthy. Again, there's a lot of pieces there on offense. They're just missing that offensive line. Brock Purdy was getting sacked a lot more than you think, so give me Josh Simmons.
Now we got the Dallas Cowboys up at 12. Obviously, Michael Davis not in here for that, but had to keep the pan a little smaller because, like I thought was going to happen, this show is going to be running long. Obviously, their running game was really, really bad last year, and I have Ashton Jeanty still on the board at 12. I don't want to see him in Dallas. I don't want them to have hope. They're too arrogant for how much failure they've seen. They don't get it done in the postseason. They had a bad year this year. I got them taking a really, really good running back in Ashton Jeanty. I mean, what else is there to say after you watch the season he just had at Boise State? Super easy pick for the Cowboys. Jason, what do you have him going here?
Man, I hope not. Ugh. As a Giants fan, no, please. We have enough problems watching Saquon run wild on us in Philadelphia in the NFC East right now. So please, I could see them going Tyler Booker, guard at Alabama. another team that has a lot of holes right now. You hope Dak comes back and is healthy. That defense can hopefully come back and get healthy too. I think they need a few pieces here and there. Yes, they do need help at the running back, but I think they can find that somewhere else in this draft a little lower. So give me Booker, guard Alabama.
Love that pick for Dallas. Obviously, need help on the offensive line as well. Chris, what do you think they're going to do at 12?
Ashton Genty. I mean, he's there. He's there on my board. Addresses the clear team need. They haven't had a real franchise running back since Zeke. And, hey, Ashton Genty has probably had the best running back season for a college player ever. So I think it's a slam dunk if he falls, and I think he will.
Without a doubt, phenomenal season. And you hate to see that he did not get rewarded with the Heisman Trophy after the amazing season he had. Obviously, Travis Hunter's super deserving as well. Really contentious Heisman race. I think any other season where one of these guys is the front runner and not competing with the other, it's a clear choice for either one of them. Sucks for Genty, he didn't get it, but Hunter deserved it as well. Now we got the Dolphins up at 13. Tua has been dealing with concussions. I think you got to protect him. I have them going Tyler Booker, guard out of Alabama. Hopefully he can fill the void that was left by Robert Hunt when he left to go to the Panthers. So happy they paid that guy money. He was a Pro Bowl alternate. Super happy that he made it. Phenomenal guard for Carolina. Smart money spent. Chris, what do you have them going at 13?
It's a hard one. It really is a hard one. Miami's kind of in a weird situation because I think that they do need a lot. Edge rusher would help them out. I'm gonna go with a big guy. I'm gonna go Jalen Walker. I think that they could really use some help on the defensive end there. They have a really good receiving core, assuming Tyreek Hill is still there next year. I mean, probably not, but still, I would say between that or offensive line, because Tua obviously, needs to stay healthy. But yeah, give me Jalen Walker.
Jason, what do you think's Miami? What thinks? I'm sorry, I can't talk. I don't know what's happening to me, but what do you think they're doing at 13? Do they build up that defense, or do they do what they can to protect Tua?
And another one of those teams that has a lot of questions right now. What's going to go on with Tyreek Hill? Do you see that kind of trade going down on or before the draft, and they start moving around and move up and get themselves another wide receiver? So it's going to be interesting to see what the Dolphins do. They got a lot of questions to answer. Armand Memabo from Missouri. I think they take somebody that they need. They have to fill those holes, get some of the best talent available. So I think they go Membo, however you say his name. I think that's what the Dolphins do. They have a lot of needs right now, and offensive line, defensive line are two of the biggest ones, and I think they're going to handle that somehow in this draft right now. But their offensive weapons have a lot of questions. Do they stick with Tua? They trade him away and find his parent, because you got to find out where his head is at. So this is going to be interesting for the Dolphins. I think this is their moving year. It's going to be. You don't see them start to move. It's going to be interesting to see where this franchise goes in another direction.
For sure, I really think they got to prioritize keeping Tua healthy. Get him an offensive lineman who's going to be able to block for him. Next up, we got the Colts at 14. Anthony Richardson obviously struggled this year. He's not panning out like the Colts would have wanted him to pan out. I think they're going to go Tyler Warren, a do-it-all weapon at Penn State. The guy lined up everywhere. He can block. He can catch the ball. He can run. They had him at center. They had him all over every spot at wide receiver. Phenomenal talent. I think getting Anthony Richardson a weapon, and also somebody who can block for him, because Anthony Richardson is a phenomenal running quarterback. Hopefully he can develop more as a passer. But Jason, what do you have the Colts doing at 14?
I think they need to address that defense. They can work on the offensive line. They definitely need some help. Richardson, I think he still needs some time to develop. Here we go. One of those quarterbacks that just did not have a lot of time to practice. He wasn't groomed at all. He didn't even have a very long college career, and they just kind of threw him out there, and you kind of see what happened with that. Hopefully the Colts have not damaged him completely. But I go Jahad Burrow, cornerback from Texas. I think they need some help there on the defense. Texas guys right now are a bunch of studs there on those cornerbacks. I think they need a lot of help there on defense. So Colts go defense this draft.
Chris, what do you think Indy's going to do at 14? Do they get Anthony Richardson a weapon? Do they address the defense, offensive line? What do you think?
I think they go for a combo. That they're going to go address a weapon and they're going to go address offensive line. Give me Warren as well. They don't really. I can't even name their starting tight end to be completely transparent with you. So yeah, give me that Penn State tight end, Warren.
Obviously, I think Warren is a really great player. Like I said earlier, Penn State had him lining up everywhere. I think you give the Colts a dynamic weapon like that as both a receiver and a blocker. It's going to hopefully put Anthony Richardson in a better place to succeed. Next up at 15, we got the Atlanta Falcons, another division rival, the Carolina Panthers. I have them going James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee, a phenomenal pass rusher. I would say arguably the best. He's right up there with Abdul Carter as a pass rusher, but he's not the best against the run, which is the knock against him. He needs to add a little more mass to become a 3-down player. Right now, he would only be in passing situations, but I think he is a phenomenal upside player coming out of Tennessee. Chris, what do you think Atlanta's going to do?
I still have McMillan on my board, so I'm going to go McMillan. I mean, they are kind of a team that just drafts best available. We've had this conversation on Out of Pocket, and I think we've had this in the Gridiron Address a few times, that they don't really address positional needs. They just kind of pick who's ever the best available. And Kyle Pitts so far has not really been working out that well. So yeah, I'm gonna go with McMillan here.
Jason, Chris has Atlanta bolstering their offense. What do you think they're gonna do? Do they get a weapon for Michael Penix Jr. or do they build up that defense?
I think they build up the defense. I think they stay in state and go with Jalen Walker. I think out of Georgia. Mm-hmm. They need that defense. They have some great offensive weapons. Penix shocked everybody the way he played those last few games coming out of last year. Even Kyle Pitts showed up. So if Penix can get something out of Pitts, then I think that offense is going to be fine. They need to go defense. So give me Walker out of Georgia. I think they stay in the house.
Up at 16, we got the Arizona Cardinals. I got them going Mike Green, edge rusher out of Marshall. He was one of the highest graded defensive linemen on PFF this season, and the guy had a phenomenal week of practice at the Senior Bowl, just looking absolutely electric. I think he's put a lot of people on notice. Prior to this, I think he was a late first, early second kind of guy. I think his performance at the Senior Bowl practices has really solidified his spot as a first-round draft pick. I think the Cardinals go Mike Green, phenomenal player out of a group of 5 school. I love seeing group of 5 players do well, obviously a conference rival of App State. But Chris, what do you have the Cardinals doing here?
So Michael Williams there. They need an edge rusher. They need a lot. They really do need a lot. So I think this is a really edge rusher, offensive tackle, heavy draft. And I think another one goes off. Give me Michael Williams out of Georgia. I mean, those guys, that college, man, they just produce so many great defensive players and offensive linemen for that matter as well.
Jason, what do you think Arizona's going to do here? Do they try and build up their weapons? Obviously, they got Trey McBride had a phenomenal season, but their defense also needs to get stouter. What do you think they're doing?
Yeah, Marvin Harrison Jr., phenomenal year. What a heck of a rookie class this past year. It's going to be hard to surpass that because a lot of phenomenal players came out last year. But I got him going defense. I got him Will Johnson, Michigan cornerback. They need some help on that defense. They've, again, can't get off the field on third down. They were killed by the deep ball last year. So I think they need a lot of help. So give me Johnson out of Michigan. I think they need some help there in Arizona.
Obviously, I think they got to address the defense first. I think there is a lot of solid offensive weapons that will be available in round 2. I think they go defense first round, offense second round. Up at 17, we got the Bengals and Joe Burrow, phenomenal year. If he was able to drag the Bengals into the playoffs, I think the guy wins MVP, but he was let down by his defense time and time again this season. I think they need secondary help the most. I was between them going edge rusher or secondary, but I got Malachi Stark, safety out of Georgia, available at 17. Great coverage, safety, phenomenal tackler as well. I think he fills a super important need for the Bengals. Get a stud safety there. Jason, what do you think Cincy's going to do here?
Defense, defense, defense. Good Lord. Come on. Get Joe Burrow some help, man. Man, what a phenomenal season he had. He would have been in the MVP conversation if they just had a defense in Cincinnati. Please get Joe Burrow some help, sign Jamar Chase, and get yourself a defense, please. I got Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss, man. You talk about 6'4", 290 pounds. They need help on the defense. So just about anybody you get in this draft, especially in the first round, I think is going to help them. But I like Nolan out of Mississippi there, Ole Miss. So give me Nolan.
Chris, you're going to keep it rolling defense for Cincinnati, or do they pull a pick out of left field and go offense?
Defense by a mile. I mean, that's the reason that they didn't make the playoffs. That is 100% the reason that they didn't. And again, I'm going to go best available defensive player. That's what I've kind of been doing. I'm going to continue with that theme. James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. Give me him at a Rocky Top, heading up, trading orange uniforms.
I would love that pick for Cincy as well if he managed to fall to 17, but I think he's too good to drop that far. Next up, Seahawks, and their offensive line has been bad for so long. They got a couple solid tackles, young guys, talented, but I think they need to double down. I got them going Cameron Williams out of Texas, a counterpart to Kelvin Banks Jr. This was his first year starting, so you're obviously going to expect some growing pains with an inexperienced player, but the guy's got the talent. Physically, he's there. You get him some reps somewhere where he's not going to be pushed into a starting spot right away. Work him in a bit week after week, building up to potentially a starting spot. But Jason, what do you think Seattle's doing here?
Seattle may shock everybody and go quarterback. I mean, this is going to be one of those teams that really needs to take a hard look at themselves on both sides of the football right now. They have a lot of questions. Is Geno Smith your future? DK Metcalf. What are you going to do with him? Do you trade him away? Try to get something for him. Walker's always hurt. They have some young talent on there. I think that's going to be good, but they need some talent on the defense. That defense has been atrocious. Look, if the New York Giants can beat you at home, you need some defensive help, please. So I got Kenneth Grant out of Michigan, defensive tackle. They got to do something on that back end of the ball. They need to bring the 12th man back into that stadium because they used to have the hardest stadium to visit. If you were a visiting team, it used to be abysmal to try to play there. They looked terrible at home this year, and they were just killed by so many different teams. They have some pretty good offense, and I think they can address the offensive line. Their running backs stay healthy. Jackson Smith and Jigba is a star, is going to be born with him because that kid is phenomenal. I think he's going to be a really great wide receiver for them, but they need some defensive help to pick that crowd back up and get off the field on third down.
Chris, what do you think they're doing? Do they try to fix an offensive line that has just not been a good unit for a super long time? Or
I definitely think they will. And, 6'5", 352. Give me Tyler Booker out of Alabama. They, again, school that produces a lot of great offensive linemen. I think they address that need, and I think that they give my boy Geno one more year, hopefully. We hope.
And up at 19, we got the last of the NFC South, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Super, super solid season. We're seeing Baker Mayfield playing the best football of his career. Obviously lost another offensive coordinator. He's going to be on number 3 this year, which – how Liam Cohen left Tampa was rough. I understand wanting to get a head coaching job, but flipping back and forth like that, obviously not a good look. I do like the hire for Jacksonville, though. I have them going a versatile safety out of South Carolina, Nick Emenwari. He's a phenomenal playmaker. You can line him up at safety. You can put him at will linebacker. He's got a lot of positional versatility for Tampa. I think they're pretty set on offense. They got some solid tight ends. You got Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, couple great running backs, and Mayfield, like I said, playing the best football of his career. Sorry about that. My cat is being a menace. I don't know what she just got into, but Chris, what do you think Tampa's going to do here?
It's a hard one to say. I mean, this is a hard one. They're kind of right there. There's their, the first playoff team here in our mock draft here. So I think that there's a lot to address. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with Chris Godwin. I think he did lose a little bit of stock with that injury, but he's a free agent. I don't think he's going to be returning to Tampa Bay. So give me Luther Burden out of Mizzou. Give me him. Wide receiver, go help out Mike Evans. Mike Evans still got himself another few good years left in his pocket. So, yeah.
Jason, Tampa's pretty good on offense, but like Chris said, Godwin might be leaving. So do they go wide receiver, or do they try and get some more depth at defense?
That's an interesting question. Tampa Bay, if I had an MVP for heart, Baker Mayfield is my MVP this year. What a phenomenal year, losing two of your top wide receivers and willing to Tampa Bay Bucks to the record that they had and play as well as they did. I think they go Tyler Warren tight end. I think they need to upgrade in the tight end position. Otten's is not that guy. They are going to probably lose Godwin. I don't think they can pay for him. I think they can get some other wide receiver talent in this draft. They could go defense, Jihad Campbell out of Alabama. So, if they decide to go defense, which is possible, go that way. But I think they need to stick to the offensive firepower. There's enough defense in this draft for them to restock.
And up at 20, we got the Broncos, a team that massively exceeded expectations. Bo Nix obviously struggled early in his rookie season, but the guy got it together at the end. They were carried by a really, really good defense, most sacks in the entire league. I got them addressing offense. You need to get Bo Nix some more weapons. I have them going Colston Loveland, tight end out of Michigan. He's not the blocker that Tyler Warren is, but he is a very, very good receiving tight end. I think you get Nix a weapon like that, and you just put him in a really good place to succeed and build off of his rookie year that exceeded expectations. Chris, what do you have the Broncos doing at 20?
It's a hard one. I think that they're going to go tight end. I think that's something that they're going to need. And Michigan has a lot of people in this draft, a lot more than I thought they did. So give me Colston Loveland out of Michigan, tight end.
Jason, me and Chris went tight end. What do you think Denver's going to do? Build up that offense or just continue to stack that really, really good defense?
He took my pick, Loveland out of Michigan tight end. They need some help there. Sutton has turned to be an awesome player. Bo Nix and him have a great chemistry together. You give him a solid tight end, that kid's going to be phenomenal for years to come. So I'm going to go tight end also. That defense is amazing. Surtain is probably one of the best, if not the best in the NFL right now. So I think they're going to still reload on defense, deep draft in the defensive end. So I think they're going to get some defense no matter what, but they do need some offensive weapons too. Also too, don't be surprised if maybe at some point in time they go in there and pick up another running back too, because I think they need a little running back help there in Denver.
That's a clean sweep. Another one, Colston Loveland. All of us got him going at 20. And Chris, up at 21, your Pittsburgh Steelers, obviously a really disappointing end of their season. I think they really need receiver help. I got them going to Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State, all-time leader in receptions at Ohio State. And the guy was never wide receiver one in his time there. That just speaks to the talent that has been coming out of Ohio State at wide receiver. And it speaks to how consistent he has been. And what I think really makes this a good pick for the Steelers is his run blocking ability. Pittsburgh obviously likes to run the ball. And if they keep Justin Fields and Russell Wilson leaves, they're going to be running the ball more. I think getting a receiver who is a stout run blocker is important. And Egbuka fills that role perfectly for Pittsburgh. Chris, what do you think your team's doing here?
I'm also going Egbuka here. I mean, he is fantastic again in the pass or in the run block, and that would work a lot, especially with all these screens that the Steelers like to run. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I think we're going to be leaning a lot more into the run game if we keep Justin Fields. Even if Najee Harris does walk, I still think Jalen Warren is going to continue to be he was about 50-50 this year. He's probably going to be number one going into this year. I think Fields objectively is the one that we should stick with, but that's an argument for another show. But yeah, give me Mbuka. I think it's great. I think he falls there. I'm hoping he does. Who knows? He should. McMillan's there, so I think someone will snag him, and I don't see another receiver falling. Yeah, we're hoping. That's what I'm hoping for. I'm hoping that they don't do something ridiculous and draft Jalen Milroe.
That would be so funny. What we've done for a few years, Jason, is me and Chris and our friend Luke, who we run the Football and More Instagram account with, that's a little dead right now. We're going to hopefully revive that here, but
I did Olympic coverage on there like 2 months, like for like 5 months ago. I forgot about that.
Oh, that's right. It's always random posts, and the predictions fell out because I got sick and I couldn't keep up with it. But we're going to get some draft stuff out there here in a couple weeks. But Jason, we always do a draft watch party. It's super fun. And I remember when the Lions sniped Penei Sewell from Carolina, and the devastation was rough for me because he was my perfect player for Carolina that year. Got a little off track, but what do you think Pittsburgh's going to do? Do they address their need at receiver, or do they move in a different direction?
I think they definitely need to do something at wide receiver. Glaring issues there. I would like to see them go Justin Fields. I think Russell Wilson needs to move on. I thought he really showed what he was becoming in that last game there in the playoffs, where I think they should have put Fields in the second half of that game. I think they needed some electricity, and right now Russell Wilson had zero electricity left. But I think they go wide receiver. I think they go Matthew Golden, wide receiver out of Texas. A little more underrated, but I think they go definitely wide receiver. They're going to try to pick the best there, but I like Golden out of wide receiver out of Texas. I think they choose him.
All of us got Pittsburgh addressing wide receiver. Obviously, that's got to be priority for them. Up next, we got the Chargers, another team that to me really exceeded expectations. Harbaugh came in and really bolstered that team's stout defense. I got them continuing to load up on defense. I think Harbaugh's getting one of his key players from his time at Michigan, Kenneth Grant, defensive tackle out of Michigan. Phenomenal athlete. The guy he ran a sub 5 second 40 his freshman year at 360 pounds. Insane athlete. I think he's going to come in and really be an anchor in that run defense for the Chargers for years to come. Jason, what do you have the Chargers doing here?
I'm going to flip the script a little bit because I'm looking at my board and it's ever changing, listening to you guys, looking at all these notes and scribbles I have because I can't even read my handwriting half the time. But I think the Chargers need to do something at the wide receiver position. I think they go Luther Burden, the third wide receiver out of Mizzou. Look, Lad McConkey, Lad the Impaler had a phenomenal rookie season. He's going to be a stud, but that is all they had. Quentin Johnson couldn't catch a cold, couldn't hold on to the football. They need another dynamic wide receiver. So give me Luther Burden. I think they need to give some more help to that offensive firepower because Ladd can't be the only one. And that was the problem with the Chargers this year is they just could not get anybody else involved on that offense. You had Ladd, and then that was it. And then it just fell off the cliff. So give me another wide receiver going to those Chargers. They can address defense and a lot of the other stuff on offensive line in later rounds in this draft.
Chris, what do you think's happening here? Do they get Herbert another receiving weapon? Hopefully someone who can catch the ball, or do they continue to load up on defense?
I just don't know if there's that many great wide receivers left. I mean, I'm pretty much close between Matthew Golden and Kenneth Grant here. But, I mean, defense wins championships, they say. I'm going to go with Kenneth Grant. I think that he's already fallen farther than I thought he would, especially just a Michigan defensive guy. It's going to be Kenneth Grant going to the Chargers. And I think they might wait a little bit on a receiver because that stock kind of decreases. So once we more cover the second round, I think he's going to be going there. Or they will go in the second round, rather.
Up next at 23, we got the Green Bay Packers, a playoff team that solid season form, obviously disappointing end, but it's looking like Jair Alexander could potentially be leaving, so they're going to have a need at secondary. I got them going a defensive back out of Texas, Jahdae Barron. I think, he has great instincts, phenomenal tackler, and with Alexander leaving, like, it's seeming more and more likely that he will. They're going to need to get secondary help in there, and I think Barron fits that role super well. Chris, what do you think Green Bay is going to do?
I mean, they're never going to draft a receiver, even though they should. They should ideally trade up for one, but they never will. That's probably why Aaron Rodgers ended up leaving. And I think they're going to do a very big Green Bay pick. They're going to go address defense like they always do. Give me Benjamin Morrison out of that Notre Dame Fighting Irish national championship team.
Jason, me and Chris got them getting some secondary help. What do you think Green Bay is going to do?
I think they need to put pressure on the quarterback. They just got burned too many times. Shamar Stewart, Texas A&M, coming off the edge. They need to bolster that defense. I think no matter what, they need to do something on the defensive side of the ball. They got offensive weapons. They need to do something with that wide receiver room and get these guys all on the same page because they have tons of wide receiver talent. They haven't really developed them, and they're not really playing cohesively with Jordan Love. So give me defense, Shamar Stewart, Texas A&M. Go Pack.
Go Pack. Up at 24, we got their division rivals, Minnesota Vikings. Yet again, another team exceeded expectations. You thought J.J. McCarthy was going to be the guy. He got hurt preseason, and Sam Darnold comes in and has a phenomenal year. I would love to see him back in Minnesota. I got Minnesota addressing their secondary, though. Harrison Smith and Stephon Gilmore, they're both contemplating retirement. Even if both of them come back or one of them comes back, you got to get a guy in there to replace them. I think they go Siobhan Revel out of ECU, another group of five guy. Yes, he's coming off of an injury, but prior to that, he could have potentially been a top 15 pick. The guy has phenomenal size at corner, 6'3", 190. I think he would be an anchor for that defense for years to come. Jason, what do you got the Vikings doing here?
Here goes the crazy prediction here. Sam Darnold goes back to the New York Jets. He takes the success he had in Minnesota and goes back to New York. Anyway, I think they definitely go defense. That defense needs help. Look, they have offensive weapons. They have stud wide receivers. I think Darnold should stay in Minnesota too. You had a good run with them. They obviously can keep JJ on the bench, let him heal next year, give Darnold maybe a 2-3 year contract, something you can kind of pay him, but then get out of if JJ, you do like a Aaron Rodgers scenario where you just kind of sit behind a good starting quarterback and you learn, and then 2-3 years from now, as you're developed, then you put him in there. But I got him going Malachi Starks out of Georgia, safety. They definitely need some defensive help. They got burned and were in too many blowout, big bomber games with a couple of different teams this year. They got to do something to combat the Detroit Lions offense. You got weapons in that NFC North between, Green Bay and Chicago and Detroit. You got to do something to stop those wide receivers from killing you. So Malachi Starks, Georgia.
Chris, are you going to keep it rolling with secondary for the Vikings with Gilmore and Smith potentially retiring, or do they move in a different direction?
Yep, I'm going to go ahead. I'm actually going to go copy you. I think they're going to get Revel out of ECU. Cornerback, they need to address that secondary. Again, the receiving core is fantastic. Quarterback, they need to figure that out. Let J.J. McCarthy heal. We don't know how he's going to be. If Sam Darnold's there, who knows? We know how his season finished out. That last game with Detroit did not exactly look very against Detroit. It did not look very fantastic. So, yeah, but give me a cornerback. Give me Revel at ECU.
Up at 25, we got the Texans. Stroud had a sophomore slump, struggled a lot. I think you got to get him an offensive lineman. I'm going Donovan Jackson, guard out of Ohio State, who slid over to left tackle when Josh Simmons went down and played phenomenal. That is not an easy switch to make at the level that Ohio State plays at. Obviously, helped lead them to a national championship. That pains me to bring it up. Terrible end of the college football season for me, but Jason, what do you think the Texans are going to do here?
They need to do something at wide receiver. Tank Dell, that horrific injury. I hope he can come back. But man, that 2 years in a row to have your legs like literally taken out from underneath you. Stephon Diggs injured. Will he bounce back? So right now, there's some wide receiver questions. You got Nico, you got Schultz, and then a band of misfits. So I think they go Emeka Egbuka, the wide receiver out of Ohio State. I think it's either him or Golden, whoever's there. But I see them taking a wide receiver. They need to get that offensive help again. They can still get offensive line help. They can still get defensive help in this draft. But they need to get a big bopper wide receiver to go with Nico, because I am really, really nervous to see either Dell or Diggs not really come back 100% next year. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with those two guys.
Chris, what do you think the Texans are going to do? Do they get a receiver, given the fact that they're dealing with some significant injuries to two of their top 3 receivers later in the season, or do they address that offensive line?
I still think the receiving core is fantastic, even with the injuries. And I think the main reason that they did kind of finish up mediocre this year was because of that offensive line. CJ Stroud needs protection. That's been an issue for the Texans for quite a while. I'm going to go Armand Membo here out of Missouri, offensive tackle. I think that's a good address for those Texans, and they can slowly start building an offensive line, building that secondary, and maybe they could really put up a fight against a team like Kansas City that they've had a little bit of a sample size against so far.
Coming up at 26, we got the Los Angeles Rams, a great receiving core. Stafford's still playing good, getting up there a little bit. They're not going to go quarterback here, but if you want to throw out an absurd pick, maybe the Rams go quarterback. I got them going defense, though. Stack that defense. I got them going Jalen Walker out of Bama, phenomenal linebacker who's probably going to line up as a defensive end a lot in the NFL. But, Chris, what do you think the Rams do here?
It's a hard one. This is a close one, too. I was really surprised to see Shedeur Stewart fall this far. I was really surprised to see Mike Green fall this far in my mock draft, but I really think that they need to address defense, and Mike Green, edge rusher here for the Rams. I think that would be really good. Just build that solid already defense that made them make the playoffs, because when that team is healthy, that Rams team is scary, and I just don't think a quarterback that's really worth drafting will be there at that point.
Jason, what are the Rams going to do? Do they continue to build up that defense or add a little bit of depth at offense? Because we saw them struggle earlier in the season while the receivers were still banged up.
That's going to be interesting. I know Stafford said he wants to play next year, but I think they do go out and get a quarterback this year for someone to kind of learn underneath of him. But you talked about an aging quarterback. They do have a really, really good run game. Who knows what's going to happen with the wide receiver room? Was it Cooper Kupp? I think might be leaving, so it would be interesting to see what happens there. But I think they go out and get an offensive tackle. They got to shore up that offensive line. You got to protect an old Stafford, and you got to lean on the run game. So Josh Conley Jr. over there out of Oregon, 305 pounds of just pure blocking ability. So give me Conley Jr. out of Oregon. They need to protect Matt Stafford.
Up at 27, Chris, we got your Steelers divisional rival in the Baltimore Ravens. Interesting situation. I don't think they really have a lot of super glaring needs. I think they're going to add some depth at offensive tackle. I got them going Armand Membo out of Mizzou, went up against a murderer's row of defensive line talent in that SEC. Like we said earlier, there's just so many linebackers, edge rushers, defensive tackles coming out of that conference. And for him to play as well as he did at that level speaks volumes to the kind of player that he is. I think Ravens pick up a really good offensive tackle. Chris, what do you think Baltimore's going to do here?
I'm actually going to go a little bit of a weird one. This is another curveball I'm going to throw because I was thinking about this for the past few minutes. And, Zay Flowers is the first Pro Bowl wide receiver that they've ever had in their franchise history. He went over 1,000 yards this year. That's not very common for a Ravens wide receiver to do. Give me Matthew Golden. I think that they're going to go and draft a receiver and try and help out Lamar. So that's kind of I don't think that's totally out of left field, but I think it just occurred to me, like, really, Ravens and wide receivers don't really mix. And I think they're going to try and go for an electric playmaker like Golden.
Jason, what do you think they're going to do? Do they build up offensive line maybe go defense, or do they get another receiver to pair with Zay Flowers because maybe Rashad Bateman isn't the greatest wide receiver too?
I think they go defense. The Baltimore Ravens built their franchise around defensive players, and they have enough offensive weapons. They'll be all right at wide receiver. They still got a stud at the king at running back. But give me Siobhan Revell Jr. out of East Carolina, cornerback. They need some help. They need to stop people throwing the ball down the field on them. That defense needs to be shored up because the Baltimore Ravens were always known for having a stud defense. It's nice that they have a really, really good offense right now, and Lamar is probably going to win MVP or get really close. It's between him and Allen, 1A and 1B. That's why I'd like to see Saquon get it because you can't really split Allen and Lamar. But, give me some defense. Revell Jr. out of East Carolina. I think they need some help. Shore up that defense, man. You need to bring the Baltimore Ravens back to throw back there, with Ray Lewis and all those guys. Ed Reed, so let's get back to that kind of defense where teams were scared of you. Teams are scared of their offense. They're not scared of their defense, and that's not good for the Ravens.
Now up at 28, we got the Detroit Lions, who I think had the most disappointing end to their season. A lot of people had them penciled in as, Super Bowl contenders, maybe upsetting the Chiefs. I had them in the Super Bowl as well. I think it was kind of come down to Detroit and Philly, and Detroit didn't even make it rough end. Their defense was so banged up. So I think you got to address that, get some depth. I think they're going Shamar Stewart, another player who's had a phenomenal Senior Bowl week. I think that has solidified him as a late first-round pick, and Detroit adds much-needed depth at defensive line. Jason, what do you think Detroit's going to do here?
Definitely got to go defense. I think they had 19 or 20 guys on injured reserve on that defense, which is terrible. I wouldn't be surprised if they went offensive line to throw a little extra on there because they have such a dynamic run game. But I like Mike Green out of Marshall. I think they need some oomph back there, and they need some more depth because they definitely were hurting on the defensive side of the ball. So Mike Green, edge.
Chris, what's Detroit going to do? Do they continue to add depth at defense that was clearly needed?
I'm also going to go Shamar Stewart here. I definitely think they need to address edge rusher. The defense is the reason Jaden Daniels absolutely torched them. I think that if you just go a defensive player, Stewart, once Aiden Hutchinson's healthy, be a good 1-2 punch at the edge right there.
Up at 29, we got the Commanders, and Sam Cosmi went down in the divisional round, tore his ACL. I think they are going to go offensive guard. Chris, I think they're going Wyatt Millum out of West Virginia. Yes, he played tackle at West Virginia, but he might not have the size necessarily to continue playing tackle at the next level. So I think he's going to move into guard. We saw him practice at both guard and tackle at the Senior Bowl. I think guard is going to be his best position in the NFL. And the Commanders, they got to get the offensive line boosted up. I think Cosmi being that seriously injured this late makes that a really glaring need for them to address. And I think they're going to be smart and address it in the first round. Chris, what do you think Washington's doing here?
Millen was fantastic. I mean, I was really happy I was able to see him play for quite a while here up in Morgantown. But I don't necessarily think he's the best offensive lineman available right now, at least based on my board. So I was kind of in between a few guys here. Definitely need to address that, especially with the injuries. So give me Josh Connerly out of Oregon, offensive tackle.
Jason, is it going to be a clean sweep at offensive line, or do you think Washington moves in a different direction, possibly bolstering up that secondary that we saw struggle this season?
Yeah, you got the future of the franchise sitting back there. So Josh Simmons, Ohio State offensive tackle, you definitely need to shore up that offensive line, protect your investment.
Up at 30, we got the Bills, another brutal AFC championship loss to the Chiefs. Kansas City's just got their number. Mouthing off with Mike, here comes the Boom Boys mock draft. Mike, we're going to be getting to your Eagles here after this Bills pick. Yes, we don't know what the last two picks are going to be, but just for the sake of having a draft order to go off of. We're going to have the Eagles at 31, but the Bills, I think they need somebody who's going to be able to go after the quarterback. I got them going defensive tackle out of Oregon, Derek Harmon. They just need some help at defensive line, just somebody who can get after the quarterback, because to beat Patrick Mahomes, you got to put pressure on him. And even when you do, he's still good, but just somebody who can get after the passer. I got them going Derek Harmon. Chris, what do you think Buffalo's going to do?
I think they're going to go secondary here, and I got them going Jetty Barron out of Texas because, I mean, a cornerback, that would not be that bad, honestly. I mean, especially with all those gunslingers that they have to face, guys like Drake May, Tua, and Patrick Mahomes, and CJ Stroud, just everybody in the AFC. There's a lot of gunslingers there, and I think just having a guy who can lock down some really good receivers help out, and that Bills secondary would help out. But I love the edge rusher pick, too. I think it's a coin flip.
Jason, what do you think Buffalo's doing? Build up that defense, maybe get another weapon for Josh Allen?
I think Derek Harmon was an awesome pick. I'm going with you. Defensive tackle, sure up that defense. The guy is 6'5", 310 pounds. So Buffalo, you better have a whole heck of a lot of Buffalo wings ready for this guy, because he's going to be eating a lot of them. So they definitely need some defense. They'll work on the offensive line. I think they have a few other needs too. I still think they need a little better wide receiver. I think they need to go out there and maybe get a Tyreek Hill, maybe get another, a free agent, maybe, somebody that's floating around out there. So to help Josh Allen, but you get the biggest guy available, 6'5", 310, good gravy. Put him on that line.
And Mike, we're finally getting to your Eagles at 31. Like we've seen, Howie Roseman loves his SEC defensive players. I got them going Jahad Campbell, linebacker out of Bama. Philly's pretty set on offense, I think. Hurts is good. Their offensive line's phenomenal. Receiving core is good. They got Saquon Barkley, MVP candidate. I hope he wins it. I got them continuing to build up that defense, load it with SEC players. Jason, what do you think they're going to do?
I think they definitely do that route too. TJ Sanders out of South Carolina. I know some people got him kind of in an early second round pick, but I think he kind of fits into that Eagles defense. So give me Sanders there for the Eagles.
Chris, what do you think Philly's going to do? Maybe get a wide receiver 3, or do they continue to build up a super, super stout defense?
I think the receiving core is already there, and I think that defense is already there. And I think giving Jalen Hurts a little bit of help, that would really, really help out. This is where I have Wyatt Millam going, actually, because I think he's a versatile offensive lineman, and I think he's going to fall around here roughly. I could see him maybe falling into the early second, maybe a Cleveland or somebody like that, depending on what they go in the first round, grabbing him too, which would suck. But I hope he goes to the Eagles. I'd much rather see him there. So give me Wyatt Millam. Dub VU, baby.
And we're down to our last pick. We are just short of an hour and a half on the show. Longest show I've done by a mile. I think the Chiefs are they don't really need much. They could go wide receiver, but I'm not super huge on any of the receivers they got here. I got them going Walter Nolan out of Ole Miss. Really good defensive tackle that I would love to see learn from Chris Jones, arguably best defensive tackle in the league, and just build up a defense that has really been carrying this team this year. But Jason, what do you think Kansas City's going to do at the end of the first round here?
Well, this is the end of the first round. This means that they win the Super Bowl. So hopefully not, because I don't know if I can handle Kansas City winning 3 in a row. They're insufferable as it is. I think a lot of it has to do with Travis Kelce, what he's doing next year. I think a lot of it has to do with that offensive line. I think they go offensive line. Ariante Ursuli out of Minnesota, offensive tackle, 6'6", 330 pounds. Give Patrick Mahomes some more protection. He's not old, but he's getting older, so you're going to have to protect that offensive line. And I think go out there and just get a big old dude to throw on that offensive line and do some blocking, because it's going to be interesting to see what happens after this year. With Kelce leaving, you got some free agents that are going to be going out of there. So I think the Chiefs are going to need to do some retooling after this Super Bowl.
For sure. Chris, do you think they go offensive line, defensive line, or get a receiver for Patrick Mahomes, pair him up with Rashee Rice?
Hey man, I mean, again, I just don't think there's a lot of great receivers hanging around here. I mean, Isaiah Bond wouldn't be bad. Trey Harris is there. Alec Manor, I can't remember how you pronounce it. That college football 25 transfer portal legend. He's there every single year. But I'm on the cusp here. But I'm going to go Walter Nolan. I'm going to agree with you, and I think Walter Nolan caps out the first round of the NFL draft. And let's just hope that Eagles and Chiefs are switched here at 31-32.
Look,
Yes, please.
It's go Birds for me for the next week. It's
Oh, that hurts.
funny. I know, Jason, that hurts your soul. But
I got
kind of
Why
a funny
behind me
story.
is crying. Poor Why. It's like, dude, what are you doing cheering for the Eagles?
I just don't want to see the Chiefs three-peat.
No.
Funny little story from the last time we saw this matchup, because we've seen this before. Not happy about it, but one of my roommates at the time was a Chiefs fan. And so I took advantage of all the printers they have at App State, just printed out a bunch of pictures. Again, I've been talking for an hour and a half. Clearly, my mouth isn't working anymore. Printed out a bunch of pictures of Eagles players, just taped them all over the inside of the front door and his outside of his bedroom door, just messing with him a little bit. Obviously, didn't pan out. Chiefs won the first of what could potentially be a three-peat there. But that'll do it for the first round. Real quick, got a couple comments mouthing off with Mike, liking my linebacker call. Appreciate you watching. And we got a new viewer, Marina Sands, liking some of our picks as well. Appreciate you watching. And that'll do it for this Marathon Mock Draft 1.0 from the Gridiron Address. Thank you all for watching. Thanks for sticking around for this hour and a half show. And let's get out of here, and everybody have a good